Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Theodore Chaos and I rip apart movies for all they're worth. Today, we're not going to be talking about a particularly bad film, by any means, but we are going to be discussing a particularly disappointing film. What is that film, you may ask? Well, today we're going to be taking a look at Kick-Ass 2, or as I like to call it, everyone else's movie other than Kick-Ass's. So you may be wondering, where did the disappointment train begin? Well, I think it started a couple months back, particularly towards the end of 2012. At the time, I had really loved the first movie, the first Kick-Ass. It was bloody, it was violent, it was funny, it was stylish. It had all those great makings of a great comic book movie. But other than that, it was just entertaining as hell to watch. I mean, moments in that movie are just so entertaining to watch. Like that final gun battle at the end, where Hit Girl's going through Mark Strong's mansion. That's a great scene. That's a great fucking scene. It's a great shootout scene, by the way, too. The way that scene begins and the way that scene ends, just textbook greatness. So, and I should probably start off from the very beginning. How I saw the very first Kick-Ass movie. Kick-Ass 1 came out in 2010, and around that time I wasn't really old enough to go see it yet, nor was I particularly interested in it. But around 2011, I became more and more interested in it, and eventually I worked up enough courage to rent it. And what a great decision that was, because it turned out that I was going to love that movie. In fact, it turns out that that movie was actually going to turn into my favorite superhero movie of all time. So, you can applaud yourself on that one, Kick-Ass. You've won my approval. But after I saw the first Kick-Ass and I started watching reviews for it that had come out in 2010 when people were reviewing the movie, I realized I was not alone in my thoughts, because a lot of other people liked the movie too, save for Roger Ebert, but, you know, rest in peace. I was actually really thinking that, hey, the first Kick-Ass was great. If they do a sequel, it'll be just as good. Hell, maybe even it could be better. A year went by. Nothing. Beginning of 2012, heard nothing. Towards the end of 2012, didn't hear anything. Beginning of 2011. But, again, at the beginning of 2012, I didn't hear anything. We're going to flash forward to about, let's see here. I had to move the camera a bit. We're going to flash forward to about, maybe November, I think. Maybe November, December is when I finally got a glimpse of the trailer. And I had heard from my friend Luke that a red band trailer for Kick-Ass 2 was released. Now, I thought he was lying at first when he said this. But apparently, he wasn't lying. I went on YouTube, checked up red band trailer for Kick-Ass 2, and lo and behold, there it was. Sitting in front of me, on my computer, was the red band trailer for Kick-Ass 2. The hypeness is about to begin, you know? I watched the trailer for Kick-Ass 2, got real hyped up about it, I got real excited, I was like, oh shit, we're gonna see a really good movie this year. This is probably gonna make it on my best movies of the year list. Keep in mind, on the other hand, I had not seen any other trailers, nor had I heard anything else about this movie. I just saw the red band trailer, that's it. So, cut forward about a month or so, and then eventually I start hearing some not so good things about it. I start getting more information about the movie. I started realizing that there was going to be a different director. I started realizing there was going to be a different director, you know, and whatnot. I don't know if the stunt designer was different this time around, because the stunts in this movie, especially the fight scenes, seemed a lot more shaky camish than they did in the first one. Like in the first movie, you were able to see what was going on because they didn't hire a cameraman who had fucking all. So never mind that. I went a bit over dramatic there. But anyway, like I was saying, the first movie had really good action scenes in it, you know, because they kept the camera on the action, you know. And what really struck me about the second one was that in particular, the action this time around was, I mean, it's not the most difficult shaky cam movie I've ever seen, but it does get a bit distracting and daunting when you're trying to watch an action scene and the camera's just like, where it should be here focusing on the action, instead it's like we're gonna get our heads blown off if we don't hold that if we don't keep constantly moving that camera. Like, God forbid, you keep the fucking camera straight for more than a second. Because apparently you believe it would do something wrong. It's a sin to keep the camera straight for more than 3 seconds at a time, so we gotta constantly be shaking it around and moving it and shit and keeping it bouncing all over the fucking place, you know? It's like, just sit the fucking thing still so I can see the action scenes. Now, it's not as bad as I describe it because the action, you can see it over really well. So it's not that big of a deal. Like, the action is watchable, but still, it does get really annoying. But back to what I was saying before, I found out a couple of things about it. I found out that it was going to get a new director, and I think there's a new writer. I can't be sure, but I definitely know for a fact that there's a new director. It's not Matthew Vaughn this time. But at the time, I said, you know what? You're going to hold judgment, all right? You're going to say, you know what? Sure, Matthew Vaughn is only producing it this time around. He's not actually directing it, which does suck, but hey, I mean, maybe this new guy can just be as good, you know? It may not be better, and it may not be even the same, but at least it'll still be good, you know? A couple weeks went by, and I started learning some pretty bad information about it. And I was like, you know what? Just keep calm. You're gonna watch the movie. It's gonna be good. Trust yourself. I kept telling myself that. It's gonna be good. You're gonna have a good movie to watch. Now, funny thing was, this movie actually got delayed. It was supposed to originally premiere in June, but they moved it to August. So, you know, that's great. You know, make me wait an extra couple months just so I could get disappointed then instead of now. So, they moved the movie to August. So I said, you know what, you're going to be fine. They're going to move the movie to August, and you're going to watch it, and it's going to be fine. I knew shit was going to go bad when I saw the midnight screening that Brad Jones posted about it. I didn't even have to watch the video before I knew it was not going to be good, because the thumbnail says it all. Like, the only description that it needs is, does it kick ass or suck ass? And the thumbnail was not very promising. Every time I watch a midnight screening, I just say, you know what, watch the first 2 or 3 minutes of it, get their general opinion on it, whether or not it was good or was it bad, and then just stop the video there so you can avoid all spoilers. This time around, I didn't do that. I didn't need to not watch the first 2 or 3 minutes of the video to get why they hated this movie. There's a lot to hate about this movie. There is. First general consensus is the fact that there are a couple of big problems with this movie. First of all, I want to go into characters. Now, the characters I believe in this movie, at least I think they got at least about 80% of the main cast back. Aaron Johnson is still playing Dave Wazowski, Kick-Ass. Chloe Grace Moretz is still playing Mindy McCready, Hit Girl. And Christopher Mintz-Plasse is still playing Chris D'Amico, a.k.a. Red Mist, or in this movie, he's the motherfucker. Yeah, he calls himself that all throughout the movie. That's his villain name. But anyway, they're all back. And I will say this. Aaron Johnson has been... Man, if you thought Dave was geeky in the first movie, I mean, my fucking god. His voice was higher. They made him a lot more wimpier, and honestly, kind of dorkier in this movie too. Again, but the biggest problem about it is that when you think about it, he's almost barely in the movie. One of the biggest problems I had with this movie is that it felt so disjointed. The movie can't stay on a scene without jumping dramatically to another scene. To keep in mind the first Kick-Ass, you know? It handled its scenes well because it actually established stuff. You know, it was able to keep the camera on the scene for more than 3 minutes at a time. 2 or 3 minutes at a time. It didn't need to constantly bounce around and jump in your face and be like, oh, we gotta do this, or we gotta do this, or we gotta do this, we gotta do this. It's just fucking whiplash the whole movie. One scene, just out of pure example, by the way, there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this one, just like there was in the Pacific Rim vlog I did. There'll be one scene where, they're going through, training and whatnot, per se. But yeah, they're going through training because in the movie, Dave is getting trained by Hit Girl to be better. That's why he explains why he's ripped to shit in the movie, you know? They're training him, and then literally in the next scene, it'll cut to fucking high school drama, because, that's totally what I want to see in a Kick-Ass movie. I know that Dave was in high school in the first movie, but that wasn't the focus of the fucking movie. 2/3 of this entire movie are focused on high school drama. The writers were just out dumpster diving one day, and they in the backlots of MGM or Universal Studios or Paramount or wherever, and they found an abandoned script for Mean Girls 3, and they figured, I'm sure we can work this into Kick-Ass 2 somehow, and just figured, hell, why don't we just make Hit Girl, just put her in a fucking Mean Girls movie, because that's gonna work out so well. I mean, if she's not decapitating them or cutting their limbs off, it's not going to work. And that's what this is, you know? I mean, all the movie feels disjointed. Like, Kick-Ass is barely in the movie. He's always in the fucking background, at least until the very end. But even then, it's not very long. Like, with the original Kick-Ass movie, yes, the side characters were larger than life, you know? You had Nicolas Cage playing Big Daddy, you know? And, you know, Chloe Grace Moretz playing Hit Girl. They were very larger-than-life characters, but it still felt like it was Kick-Ass's movie. It still felt like he was in the movie long enough that I was like, okay, this establishes that he is there. There's a reason for him being here. But in this movie, he's barely there. Like, you have Jim Carrey's group, Justice Forever. They're in the movie, and Jim Carrey, I will admit, is very good in this movie. He's one of the very few shining stars in this entire thing. He's good in the movie. Yeah, his group, Kick-Ass is palling around with their group of Justice Forever. Now that I remember. Which brings me back to another bullshit plot point that they bring up 10 minutes into the movie. You remember Katie from the first movie? You know, Dave's girlfriend that he spent the entire movie pursuing and eventually, in the end, did end up getting? You know? Yeah, they dump her 10 minutes into the movie. Why? High school misunderstandings. Fucking really? Like, if this had been any other people, I would have got it. It would have been dumb, but I would have at least said, you know what? That's fucking high school for you, man. But here, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Katie knows that Dave is Kick-Ass. She knows this. She knew this at least until the last act. Like, she knew this going into the last act, you know? She knew that Dave was Kick-Ass. She knew all of this bullshit. What happens 10 minutes in the movie? Oh, she thinks that he's cheating on her with Hit Girl, so she just tells him that she's been cheating on him this entire time, and then she's gone from the movie. Because we needed to introduce a new love interest. Fucking really? Like, you couldn't think of any other way that you could have just gotten rid of Katie. Like, if you really, really thought the writers, like, oh, hold on, we're gonna introduce a new love interest, she's gonna be kind of unlikable a bit, you know, at least for me. She's gonna be kind of unlikable a bit, and, you know, but it's gonna be great, So how do we get rid of Katie? No. I got it. High school misunderstanding, that totally is gonna make sense. Fuck that. No. Keep Katie in the fucking movie. I mean, they spent Dave and Katie's relationship in the first one was focused on so much. Hell, it was because of Katie in the first movie that Dave even fucking met Hit Girl to begin with. What? Apparently that stands for nothing now. So fuck it. So you got Dave and Jim Carrey's group, Justice Forever. He's palling around with them for most of the movie. And then you got Hit Girl and her high school bullshit that's just kind of painful and boring to sit through, mostly because all it equates to is, hey, we have a person who's out of the ranks and has to go, you know, try and live in high school with the snooty white brat bitches that you always knew in high school, you know? You know the type. Like, seriously, it feels like 2/3 of this movie got replaced with a sequel, like some altered footage that they got from, like, Bring It On 7 or some shit like that, you know? Like, they found recycled footage from a movie that never existed because nobody wanted to fucking see it. And just said, you know what, why don't we put Hit Girl in there? But let's not make her Hit Girl, let's just make her a boring teenager who doesn't do any fucking thing until the very end because, you know, that's totally what people wanted to see in a Kick-Ass sequel, right? Character denial. And not even interesting character denial. Just, hey, I want to be something that I know for a fact that I can't be, but I'm going to do it anyway because of the fact that the writers tell me to. So, there's that bullshit you got to put up with. I found everyone in Dave's group, too. Like, you think that with a homemade, like, vigilante group that comes around, you think you get some interesting characters. And Jim Carrey's character, for example, Colonel Stars and Stripes, he's really good in the movie. Because, like, he's, like, the one thing, like, one of the very few side characters in the movie that actually kind of made me fucking interested in the movie for once. Every other character's just kind of, meh. I can't say any of them were particularly terrible, but they're just kind of bland mostly, you know? Like, for example, Dave's new love interest, Night Bitch. Yeah, it's a great title, by the way. She's in the movie, and they barely share a fucking relationship in this one. Like, throughout the entire first movie, you know, it was like, oh, at the beginning of Kick-Ass 1, Dave is ineffectually pursuing Katie, you know? Because he's kind of a nerd, he's kind of a geek, you know? But by the end of the movie, he's got her, you know? Because they've focused on their relationship. Here, they're on screen literally 10 minutes together, and all of a sudden, They just make fucking googly eyes at each other for like the first 10 minutes that they meet each other, and then boom, they're together. Like, what? Did also mention that this movie feels kind of disjointed, you know? Like I said before, it seems like they can't focus on a scene for more than, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes at best before they have to cut to a next scene really quickly. Like, Dave will be palling around with Justice forever, not really doing much, just kind of meh, interesting stuff. It leads to one interesting action sequence where they break down like a whorehouse or wherever. But that's about it. It doesn't really lead to anything other than that, you know. And then after that, it'll cut to like Hit Girl just doing her high school drama bullshit that's not interesting. It's not funny in the slightest, you know. And then it'll cut back to Christopher Mintz-Plasse doing his bullshit where he's just kind of whining throughout the entire movie. After he gets his costume, I think he gets a little better because he's actually fucking doing something. He's failing at being intimidating, but at least he's trying, you know. He's actually doing shit in the movie once he gets his costume on. Before that, he's just walking around and whining about how the fact that I'm gonna kill Kick-Ass. He killed my dad. For a fucking what seems like an hour, he does this bullshit, and eventually he finds this. He gets his costume and whatnot, you know, and then he goes around and he calls himself the motherfucker, and he's gonna establish an evil army. So there's that, you know, and I will say this, the parts where he gets his evil army, it's kind of interesting to see, but then again, it's not really on screen for that long. Like, hell, you barely get a good, even interesting look at what the fuck half of this stuff is supposed to be. Like, you'd think that some of these set designs would be interesting to look at, but they're not. Like like the warehouse or wherever that final battle takes place in, there's maybe one scene where the villains are hanging out in it before the final battle. Which I will admit was actually done fairly well. Why? Because there wasn't any fucking shit they cut back to in between that. It was one seamless, long scene that cut in between certain parts. But it cut to stuff in the battle. It didn't cut, like, imagine this. Imagine, I'm gonna try and explain the tunnel whiplash that's going out throughout this entire movie. Imagine you're watching a scene in, like, let's say Lord of the Rings. And you're in the Battle of Helm's Deep. And it's, you know, they're fighting off the orcs and whatnot, and then in the middle of the battle, right when stuff's about to get good, it cuts away immediately to like the very first, like the third scene in Bring It On, and that goes on for 2 minutes. Then it cuts back to the scene in Lord of the Rings. You know, like what the fuck just happened? Like these things, they should not be interconnecting. They shouldn't be. Why? Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's what it goes throughout this entire movie. Tonal fucking whiplash, the whole movie. And it's really disjointing to think about it because, like, I remember the first movie, it wasn't very much longer than this movie at all, but you know why? Because it kept scenes consistently. It didn't feel the need to focus on one scene, cut the scene in half, focus on it for 2 minutes, and then immediately cut back to something else completely different, cut back to something else completely different, and then cut back to that same shit. Like, there are 3 different storylines going on at once throughout this entire movie, and it feels the need to cut back to each one every 3 or 4 minutes. It is so fucking disjointing, and it just feels like a mess, you know. The comedy I found this time around wasn't funny at all. Like barely any times in this movie did I even manage to smirk. Like you can I'll watch the first Kick-Ass. I'll laugh my ass off in the first Kick-Ass movie. I can still watch it to this day and laugh at it, you know, because of all the shit that they say. This one, no. This one, I wasn't finding myself laughing at all. Barely even, like, I barely even found myself, like, just kind of momentarily just kind of looking at the screen and going, I barely even did that. Like, it seems like really, really bad when you can't even get me to laugh at a movie like this, you know. You would think it wouldn't be possible, but the writers found a way. They did, you know. I think there was one scene where it got a genuine laugh out of me. One. And it's a scene with Hit Girl and Marcus, who's her caregiver from the last movie, he's just kind of a sap in this movie. It kind of comes off as kind of a dick, too. Because if he knows half the shit he supposedly knows about Mindy McCready, then he knows that forcing her to go into a normal high school life, it's not gonna fucking work. You know it's not gonna fucking work because this girl has taken a meat cleaver to people's heads before. She's cut dudes in fucking half. She's cut dudes' legs off. You know, like fucking went through an entire She just went through an entire building just cleaning dudes out, like shooting every motherfucking thing that moves before. Like, did you not see the last action sequence in the first Kick-Ass movie? Yeah, she did that. And you expect that to live a normal high school life. No, it's not gonna fucking work. And it doesn't, and you know it's not gonna fucking work, because throughout the entire movie, she's just going along with whatever Marcus says. Oh, you need to live a normal high school life. You can't be hit girl anymore because for some fucking reason. Like, it's not like it's causing any problems. It seems to be going pretty well, actually. Like, what's the big deal? Oh, how dare she try and stop crime, you know, you know? And it gets really fucking annoying after a while, because you know it's not going to work, and you know she's going to go back to Kick-Ass. You know she's going to go back to being Hit Girl. But through at least 90% of the movie, you gotta sit through that. You have to fucking sit through that. And it's really so annoying to sit through it. I think the worst part of the entire movie for me was some of the, what was it called? Some of the plot points that they introduced, mainly because of the fact that it seems like this movie's a lot more juvenile than the first one. And you wouldn't think that, considering that a couple of criticisms that the movie received before this was that, this is very juvenile humor. No, this time around it's even more fucking juvenile than it was in the first one. I'm trying to think of the first one. I'm trying to think of any shit jokes that were in the first one. I can't think of any. I mean, it could just be just because I'm blanking, but I honestly can't think of any. In this one, no, they go all out. But sorry, before I forget, can you tell this is unscripted, by the way? One thing I was mentioning, that one joke that made me laugh was the fact that Hit Girl is with Marcus and they're going over like, oh, you can't be Hit Girl, you know, and I think she says like fuck or something like that, and he's like, swear jar. So she continues talking to him, and she kind of walks over to this swear jar, and it's this big fucking jar that's like full to the brim. It's like two jars like right next to each other. One's completely full to the brim, and one is like maybe that close to being to the brim. And she just kind of stuffs it in there. That made me laugh. Maybe I'm just a sucker for that type of stuff, but that kind of made me laugh, you know. I mean, based on what she said in the first one, yeah, that makes about as much sense as any other fucking thing in this movie. So why not? You know, why not throw it in there? Another thing I wanted to bring up personally was the fact that at the final battle at the very end, it just kind of came off as kind of, you know, I mean, I will say this about it. It didn't have total fucking whiplash, because, I can't stress this enough, it didn't cut to anything else but that scene. Like, it's one big scene, but it's cut, there's different scenes cut in between it. Like, 1 minute, it'll show Kick-Ass and the motherfucker fighting, and then it'll cut to the same battle, but it'll cut to a different part of the warehouse where one of the other members of Dave's group, Justice Forever, they're fighting another person, and it'll do that throughout most of the scene. That works because of the fact that there's, you know, it's the same scene basically, but it's just different parts of that same scene, of that same battle. You know, we're seeing different parts of it, and that worked because it, like, how disjointed would it have been throughout the entire scene? They kept cutting to the outside where the cops were coming, you know? I don't know. It may have just been me, but because of the fact that that last fight scene was edited very well, I thought that was the most enjoyable part of the movie. There's no fucking subtlety about this movie whatsoever, and I suppose you could say that about the first movie. I mean, say what you will about the first movie. At least it kept its shit under control. Like, there's a scene in this movie, 3 scenes at least, where, you know, Christopher Mintz-Plasse becomes the motherfucker, and he creates this evil army, and he buys, what else? The shark. Because, you know, why not? So he buys a shark, and it cuts to a scene where they're just kind of huddled around the tank, and they're going, oh, it's probably dead. No, it just needs to be fed, you know? Shark's not moving at all. You're like, okay, I know what's going to happen. The movie apparently feels the need to tell you again, because apparently the movie's never heard of subtlety. Like, one and done, guys, that's good enough. Hey, we bought a shark. Oh, look, it's probably dead, you know? Oh, it just needs to be fed. Then cut back to the scene where, again, spoilers, if I didn't stress it enough, then just leave it at that. Don't cut back to the shark anymore. Leave that scene in there where they're talking about it one time, and then go on with the movie. And at the very end, where Christopher Mintz-Plasse falls in the shark tank and gets eaten, that would have been fine. It would have been fucking predictable, but at least it would have been fine. No. They feel the need to tell you again that this shark isn't moving. That, oh, it probably needs to be fed. Oh, it's probably dead. Did we put fresh water in? No, we should put salt water in, you know? Over and over. And it's like, I fucking get it. you think the shark's dead, and then somebody's gonna fall in the fucking tank and get eaten, and oh god, you know, so fucking funny. It just beat you over the head with it. It was just really fucking annoying. I think mostly going back to one real quick thing before I want to end this video, I'm going to talk about two things. One thing is that high school drama bullshit I brought up before. And the high school drama in this movie is fucking boring as hell. It's your typical bullshit. Mean Girls, pretty much just bland, just, oh, we're the popular bitchy girls and we have to treat you like you're a bitch too because that's what we do, and we don't have any personalities other than that because the writers couldn't be bothered to think of any other personalities for us, so we're just stuck up high school bitches who are gonna get their comeuppance in the end. That's it, you know? And I will admit that their comeuppance was funny, but it was funny in a way that, like, I felt bad at, like, I felt like the biggest piece of shit laughing after it afterwards, you know. No pun intended, by the way, for what actually does happen in the scene, because I wouldn't be bothered to spoil it here. You know, God forbid. But it just came off as more or less kind of boring and degrading, mostly. It wasn't funny in the slightest. It was just kind of like, okay, you can do that, so what's the big fucking deal, you know? It's like they ran themselves in a corner and they couldn't think of a funny way to end it. So, shit and vomit jokes. Ooh, so fucking funny. You know, I didn't particularly like those very much, but, you know, the typical high school drama bullshit goes on for way too fucking long. Like, what ends up happening in the very end is the fact that, you know, she's like, oh, I don't have to live in this high school. So it's like, okay, you should have figured that to fucking begin with, but no, apparently it took you the whole goddamn movie to do that, so why not? So she realizes that she can't be in high school anymore. Whoop-de-fucking-do. So she goes back to being Hit Girl. Great, we can actually get on with this movie. And then the one last thing I wanted to talk about before I ended this video was a big problem that I had with this movie. Is that, like, they have interesting ideas, don't get me wrong. The idea that Chris Mintz-Plasse comes back as the villain, creates his own evil army, and challenges Kick-Ass, and they have to create their own army, too, of heroes. That's interesting on its own. You don't need any of this extra bullshit, okay? But no, they feel the need to add in all this extra bullshit because, why? Fuck if I know, you know? I thought that was the most disappointing part of the whole movie. Like, it's not a terrible movie by any means. It's not going to cause you, I don't want to say it's not going to cause you pain because I was certainly sitting there just in fucking agony watching this thing. But, I mean, I hear that there is a third Kick-Ass comic. I'll have to look that up to see if that actually is true. But if they are planning on making a third Kick-Ass movie, for fuck's sakes, don't get the same writers, don't get the same director. Get Matthew Vaughn or fucking somebody competent at least, because, I mean, my god, this movie was fucking just awful. Again, it wasn't terrible, it was just disappointing and fucking almost unbearable to sit through. Like, I had to go see this movie twice, because the first time I was just so dumbfounded from what I had seen that I had to say, you know what, you did not see what you just saw, you gotta go see it again, and I did. And I was right. Shouldn't have wasted my fucking money, you know. In case anybody hasn't said this already, go see Pacific Rim. I mean, if it's still out in theaters, go see it. Because it is such a fucking better movie than this was, you know. Because that was... Okay, I'm done talking about fucking Kick-Ass 2. I'm done. Like, high school drama bullshit does not need to be in a Kick-Ass sequel. And Kick-Ass, I would think, actually needs to be in a movie about fucking Kick-Ass. Not everybody else, who's just a bland, one-dimensional, unrealized character that could have been interesting, but in the end, wasn't. So, on that note, I'm The Utter Chaos, ripping apart bad movies since 2009. And I'll see you guys later. See ya.